This podcast is a collaboration between Costard and Touchstone Productions and the Tales from the Crypt podcast.
It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet. That is the natural order of things today. That is the atomic and subatomic and galactic structure of things today. And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone. Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale?
Hello and welcome to another episode of the How Not to Make a Movie podcast. I'm Alan Katz. Gil will join us momentarily. I grew up a movie lover. Movies and the people who make them and appear in them, they've shaped my life and the directions it's taken. One of the greatest joys of working on Tales from the Crypt was getting to work with some of the very people whose movies I adored. I really do love movies. There are some, if I haven't seen them literally hundreds of times, it's only because I haven't had time yet. And I will likely watch those movies hundreds more times because they speak to me. They're not just good stories well told, they're talismans, greater truths, signs of intelligent life in the universe. And they're all being told via what might be the most potent human invention ever, the moving picture. Movies are the printing press on steroids. Or put still another way, if pictures are worth 1,000 words, what are moving pictures worth? At the very beginning of this season, season 3, Gil and I did a list show. 5 movies we loved and 2 songs, all presented in the style of the great BBC radio show Desert Island Discs. The premise was this. You're about to embark on a very long space mission. The good news is the spacecraft is state-of-the-art in every single way, except one. They screwed up the entertainment system. There's only enough memory to store 5 movies and 2 songs. So those movies better be the kind you can watch endlessly because you just might have to. And those songs better be the kind you never tire of, ever. Because if you do, hearing those 2 songs is going to become an especially cruel kind of torture. But hey, at least you get to choose. Just choose carefully. With that firmly in mind, we present our 5x2 episode. 5 movies Gil and I each love and 2 songs thrown in for good measure. Today, we're doing our own little version of Desert Island Discs. You know what Desert Island Discs is, right?
Oh, sure.
Now, it's funny because when I mentioned that to you in the pre-show, as we were just talking about what we're going to do today, you said you'd never heard of Desert Island Discs, and that shocked me because it's a show on the Beeb radio.
My castaway this week is Stephen Fry. It's tempting to unabashedly embrace the cliche he needs no introduction.
The concept is very simple. The guest is invited on. You are on a desert island for a long period of time. I think it was 5 pieces of music and 1 or 2 books. Can't be Shakespeare or the Bible.
Oh, wow.
And so that was the nub of the interview. And so the interview would, and all kinds of famous people and others would sit in and you know, it's very telling about who you are by, you know, those choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So today we're going to do five movies we like and 2 songs. 5 and 2. 5 and it's not quite the 5 and dime. 5 and 2.
Or 5x2.
5x2. It's our own little festival. I love that. That's great. Brilliant. 5x2.
In all fairness, I just stole that. That was a Kander and Ebb musical in the 70s, a review that a very close friend of mine produced.
Who produced it?
A guy named John Vaccaro. And it was a good show.
I bet. So what is your first movie that, and again, it's simply, these are movies that we love, that we've loved from the moment we saw them. Even if we saw them recently, we're going to love them for the rest of our lives. We think about them all the time. That's it. That's the whole criteria.
I suppose if I have to admit to one movie and perhaps one song at the same time, it would be the very serious production of Spielberg's
An American Tale.
Really? Now,
the animation.
Now let me. I should have prefaced the whole thing with this. The fact that we're having this conversation, because right off the bat, I'm surprised already. I am just shocked already. You know, Gil and I were creative partners for 10 years. As you know, we produced Tales from the Crypt, a couple of feature films together. And we lived in each other's pockets. We were best of friends too. And now we're back together. It's been going on, heading into our third year of a renewed friendship and creative partnership. If you'd asked me back then, hey, your best friend, what are his favorite movies? I couldn't have told you. I could not have told you. And the fact that we started out and the first movie at the top of your list, I would never have gone there. Okay. Okay. This is already worthwhile.
Well, there's good reason. Would you like to hear the reason?
Please. Well, yes.
Well, when I first met my now wife of 30-something years,
oh, wow.
She was living in Vancouver. I was living in Los Angeles. She would come to visit me. I would come to visit her. But the song from American Tail, Somewhere Out There, which was sung in the animation version, but was also sung as a single, and it was a very successful single.
I remember
was really what we were saying to each other, which was, I'm in Los Angeles looking at the stars and at the moon, and she's in Vancouver looking at the same stars and the moon, and our thoughts would go to each other through that image of seeing the stars and the moon. So it was kind of a romantic thing. And then the movie comes out and the song comes out, and I'm sitting there listening to the song going, wait a minute, this is like a ripoff of what we were just doing. Not really a ripoff, though.
We'll find one another in that big somewhere out there.
And to this day, that's played at our anniversary and stuff like that. Or we'll hear it once in a while on the radio and we'll go, wow.
I had no idea. Good God.
Yeah.
First movie on my list isn't anywhere near as romantic. It's just a movie I love. I've always loved Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, I just saw that about 2 weeks ago on Turner Classics.
It's a great construct. That triangle, those three men at loggerheads, it is one of the best things that Alec Guinness ever did. What a wonderful character.
Well, almost anything Alec Guinness did was fantastic.
Yeah. As with all great film actors, it's what they do when they're not speaking that makes them great film actors. They never stop being. Alec Guinness never stops being Colonel Nickerson, and Colonel Nickerson is a great, flawed character. With the bombs going off all around him, all the dots finally connect.
What have I done?
Colonel Nickerson knows the mission. And yet, when a mortar blast knocks him down and he struggles back to his feet, the mission yet unaccomplished. First, he picks up his hat and wipes it off because he's an officer. That's a great character detail. At last, as he drops dead, Colonel Nickerson does the right thing and dies blowing up the bridge. There are railroad bridges blowing up, and then there's the bridge on the River Kwai blowing up. It makes the doctor's last line so perfect. Madness.
It's probably one of the earlier versions, now that I think about it, of a relatively long movie. I think I don't know how long its running time is, but I remember.
It's like 3 hours.
Yeah, it's long. It's very long. Now, from that movie, Do you remember any song the way I remember Somewhere Out There?
Well,
From
Colonel Bogey's March, was it Colonel? I might be getting the name wrong. It's the
yeah.
yeah. It was the very famous
If only you could whistle.
tune that they whistled as they whistled while they worked.
Yeah, could you do me a favor? Don't try to whistle again, will you?
It is not one of my skill sets.
No, I enjoyed that movie too. I really did enjoy that movie when I saw it originally, and even more so when I saw it recently. But I do remember in both instances thinking that was a very long movie, which brings us to my number 2 movie, which is also a very long movie, which is much more contemporary, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Can you find the wolves in this picture?
I have not seen that. Did you see it in the theater?
I saw it in the theaters, and I have a screener from the Academy, and I'm going to watch it again. I thought I would go, and I thought I would be, oh my God, it's 3.5 hours long. I'll never make it. I mean, I better order dinner and bring breakfast. It went by like that. It didn't bother me at all. My bladder paid attention. No problem going to the bathroom. It was fantastic. I just thought the movie was so well done.
Not
so well
surprising.
acted. Everything about it was fantastic. Everything about it, from the music to the opening credits to all the performances. It was just riveting.
He is an amazing filmmaker. That ain't a revelation.
Yeah.
His movies, you could pick up if they're on Turner Classics. You could really step in at any moment and just get sucked right into the flow. And
right,
especially his mob movies, Goodfellas. Wow, Goodfellas, I adore. I adore it. Wow.
Did you ever see Mean Streets?
Sure. Yeah, back in the day. Yeah. Hey,
fantastic little movie.
Yeah. He captured something so atmospheric. Even Taxi Driver is. I just watched it again recently, and that's got all kinds of bits and pieces off to the side. It's not nearly as compact. And even his longer, later movies that sprawl, there's a certain compactness to their storytelling. They've just got this magnificent energy to them. They always seem intensely focused. And Taxi Driver doesn't have that focus. It meanders a bit. It kind of captures Travis Bickle's personality, I think.
But you see, in all of these movies, for me, as I get older, I realize what attracts me to these movies has nothing to do with anything except character and relationship. It doesn't matter what time it is, what period it is. It really has to do with character and relationship. And so those are the movies that I'm most attracted to and jealous of, and feeling like, God, why didn't I get my hands on that script to try to make it?
That's a perfect reflection of my second movie, one of my absolute favorites, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It's funny. I don't think I saw it until after I'd read the screenplay, because I was so not into Westerns, and I don't know, it was a Western, but of course it's not a Western. It's an anti-Western.
No, not yet. Not until me and Harvey get the rules straightened out.
Rules? In a knife fight? No rules.
Well, if there ain't gonna be any rules, let's get the fight started. Someone count 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
I was really rooting for you, Butch.
Well, thank you, Flatnose. That's what sustained me in my time of trouble.
When I first got to this town, one of the first things I did was I got a copy of William Goldman's book, Adventures in the Screen Trade.
Right.
And inside is the entire screenplay for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And I read the screenplay before I saw the movie. And the screenplay is beautiful. It is. It's dangerous because it can get into any writer's head that if William Goldman can write like that, I can write like that. Well, no, actually, William Goldman can write like that, but you probably can't. So if you try to write like William Goldman, it's just going to suck.
So
And-
after reading the book and seeing the movie, did you feel that the movie did it justice? Did it take it further?
Oh God! Oh yeah, the George Roy Hill did a great job taking that a wonderful literate script about two interesting characters and his whole take on them as guys who they've outlived their time. You know, there's a moment when, and really, almost the entire movie is a chase scene. It's a slow chase scene because once they rob that first train and the guys on the horseback come out of the train that's following, it doesn't stop being a chase until the very last frame. Really. And that is one of the wonderful things about it. It doesn't have the usual structure. It does what it wants to do. The first scene is so great. Butch Cassidy watches them closing up a bank for the day, but when closing it up, it meant the bars on the windows. It's wow, a lot of metal has gone into protecting this bank just overnight. And he approaches the guard. He says, "This was such a beautiful bank. Why'd they do this?" And the guard says, "Well, people kept robbing it." And Butch says, "Small price to pay for beauty."
And also, it was a Western with a song in the middle, a Burt Bacharach, Hal David best-selling song.
Yeah. Which is, it's funny. The one thing about the movie, which I think is jarring, is the music, because that's so contemporary, and the movie has a contemporary feel.
Yeah, it does.
But there's a patch in the middle. There's a couple of places where he's crunching a lot of information, and so there's just a flood of images, and the music, I think they were called the Swingle Singers, and they're doing scat, basically just scatting. And it's I didn't see it when it was first released, and perhaps, well, I know the song won an Academy Award. Did the score win?
I don't recall.
I don't recall if it did, because the score does not hold up. The song's okay. It's a song. He's just there. That's the bicycle scene where, it's just a fun little vignette scene. It's nothing to do with the story whatsoever. But yeah, the music is the one thing that really feels stuck in the 70s. A great piece of writing. It's
a great piece of filmmaking too,
and a wonderful ending.
Yeah, no, I can't deny you that. I really enjoyed that movie too, and I love that song. And I love William Goldman. I've always loved William Goldman.
Have you ever met him?
I've never met him. I've read all his books, every one of them. Because when I first started out in theater, he had written a book about theater. And I devoured that from end to end about 5 times. I could probably recite to you 2 or 3 chapters. I mean, just nuts. But he was so good at what he did. Going back to Alec Guinness for a second, on the Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah.
One of almost anything that Alec Guinness has done would be on my list, but especially Dr. Zhivago.
Oh Lord, this is an awful time to be alive.
No.
What are we going to do?
I don't know.
Wouldn't it have been lovely if we'd met before?
I think we may go mad if we think about all that.
I shall always think about it.
I just fell in love with Dr. Zhivago. Now it's a huge...
Another big one. Big movie.
Another big one. A big canvas. But it was all about romance. And it was all about relationship.
Yeah.
And it was all about, in a way, justice. And so that I saw very early on when it first opened. And I was working at, I think it's MGM. I was working at MGM when it opened. I went to a screening of it. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then I went to see it in the theaters when it opened. And anytime it's on television, I record it and I watch it again. It's one of my favorite movies.
It's such a sad story.
It is a sad story. It's a very sad story.
It's so Russian. It's so Russian.
But Alec Guinness is just so good. When we did Tales from the Crypt, we decided to emulate one of his shows, Kind Hearts and Coronets, because we said, gee, Tales from the Crypt never did a show where one character played more than one part. So the one that we did with Tim Curry was one of the ones that we sort of nodded to Alec Guinness and Kind Hearts and Coronets.
One of the cool things about doing Tales from the Crypt was that we were always able to indulge our fan, just being movie fans. We got to do that all the time. Well, some of the actors we got to work with, like Kirk Douglass, Donald O'Connor, sitting on our set with Donald O'Connor, listening to him tell stories about making Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
Fucking pinch me.
Right.
We've talked about.
Were you on the set the day we talked about the making of Make 'Em Laugh with the couch?
I was not there for that. You were.
It was unbelievable.
I missed that.
I sat there with my mouth ajar. My mouth was like hanging as he was telling me how many times they did it and how difficult it was and how tired he was. And yet he had to do it again because he had to get it exactly right.
Do you remember how many takes he had to do?
Oh, it was a lot. I don't remember the number, but I know when he told me, I was like, how could you have done that many times when you jump over the thing and go through the wall? And leading up to that.
How many backup rolls did they have? I mean, it's just paper, but okay,
yeah,
still.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, listening to him talk about making that movie was just such a special moment for me, sitting on the set with him while we were doing Tales from the Crypt.
I've always been very, very fond of Dr. Zhivago too, and it's the bigness is really very appealing. It's David Lean was great with big movies, Lawrence of Arabia, great with big movies. My next movie is another big movie. A huge fan of virtually everything that Kubrick did. And of course, we've had the absolute pleasure of working with a couple of stars from one of Kubrick's most famous movies, Clockwork Orange. We've worked with, of course, Aubrey Morris and with Malcolm McDowell. But that's not my favorite Kubrick film. My favorite Kubrick film is Barry Lyndon.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I love that movie. It's so, it's like canvases. It's like they're paintings.
Yeah,
they're like
I was going to say it's a big period movie.
Paintings come to life, and Ryan O'Neal just died. Was a very pretty actor. I don't know that he had a ton of acting range, but that was okay for to play a cad, a wannabe, a guy who's going to live far beyond his station and then crash and burn. Perfectly cast. The music, and again, there's no original score. It was all period music, but it was all perfect. The battle scenes are just wonderful, and his cinematographer Jeffrey Unsworth had to create new lenses in order to shoot, because part of what Kubrick wanted to do was to not use any artificial light, was to shoot in candlelight, in scenes that occurred in candlelight. He wanted to shoot in candlelight. And none of the existing lenses were fast enough to deliver crisp, clear images that we're going to need to blow up onto the big screen. So they had to create all kinds of new lenses in order just to shoot that movie. And what a wonderful, cynical ending. Oh, I love that movie.
I don't want you to think I'm a depressed guy, although I have my moments. But one of my favorite movies that I find very, very haunting is A Beautiful Life. Again, characters, relationship, the whole fantasy that he tries to create for the young boy.
Life is beautiful.
gets to me every time I see it. And
Sure.
it doesn't. So it's so well done and so simple and so accessible and just rips at your heart. So I've always loved that movie.
It's another one of those movies that it absolutely rips your heart out.
Yeah. So that's always stayed with me, that movie. I've always, at moments I think about that, especially when I was making Valkyrie, I thought about that.
Why did Valkyrie make you think of A Beautiful Life?
Making Valkyrie was a real torture, a very difficult movie to make for a lot of reasons. And
subject matter,
people involved, country involved, and on and on and on. But I wanted it to be as good as that movie that I love so much by Benigni. I wanted it to invoke that kind of an emotion. And I think ultimately it does. I mean, I'm very proud of Valkyrie. And I think about making that movie quite often.
It's a very good movie.
What we went through,
really
what the journey was for me going through that. So I kind of think about Benigni and that movie, often.
The next movie on my list is one that we tried to emulate. One of the things that I love about this next movie that I love, Don't Look Now, is that it rips your heart out. In Don't Look Now, Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie are a married couple with 2 kids. They have a country estate in England. He's an art restorer about to start a big cathedral project in Venice when their daughter, wearing a red Mac, drowns in the pond on their property. Right off the bat, this movie rips your heart out. The movie's motifs are water and the colors red and blue, and it's about the psychic connections we don't even know we have with each other. It's a masterpiece that will haunt you in the best ways possible. Top to bottom, it's great movie making. Don't Look Now, Nick Rogue directed. There's also something in the movie that's quite... There's a sex scene. It's got one of the best sex scenes ever made in a mainstream movie with big name actors. What Nick Rogue does very cleverly, it's also cut beautifully. They're getting ready to go out to dinner. It's as they're just hanging out in their hotel room, and then they're getting ready to go out to dinner, and they begin to have sex, and he intercuts them, and you get the feeling this is the first time they've had sex since their daughter died. And he intercuts them having sex with them getting ready to go out to dinner, and you just feel there's a genuine feeling of love and the ordinariness of this relationship. It makes the sex scene really quite surprising in its emotionality. The most shocking thing about that sex scene, it's the only really intense sex scene. It's really the only sex scene I can think of in a mainstream movie between a married couple. That's probably the oddest thing about it. They're a married couple having sex. It's the exception, and not anywhere near the rule. But who wants to watch a married couple have sex? And yet, that's one of the most striking things about it.
Well, talking about married couples having sex,
there you go. I'm glad I could spur you.
Segues right into my next selection, which was almost anything Groucho Marx did.
Oh, well, yes. Well, hey.
And any of his movies. I mean, I was such a big fan of Groucho Marx that he could do no wrong. So any of his movies. What
was the first one you saw?
I have no idea. I've seen them all so many times.
You don't remember the first time that you saw Groucho and you went, "Oh my God, I get this man."
I don't think I do.
I can remember mine. I'm growing up in Baltimore, as I did on WJZ Channel 13, just back in the 60s and early 70s. Before the local news started at 6, from about 4:30 to 6, they would run movies in a movie block, and they played old comedies. They played W.C. Fields. They played Joe E. Brown movies. and they played Marx Brother movies. And my cousin Stephen he knew Groucho before I did. He said, "You got to watch this movie. You got to," and he called me and said, "Horse Feathers is on. You got to turn it on." And it just begins. And my first experience with the Marx Brothers is Horse Feathers, Groucho as Professor Quincy Adams Wagstaff singing, "Whatever it is, I'm against it."
Mm-hmm.
You had me. The man had me. And of course, the monologue that starts that movie is just one of the best.
Well, when I was talking about sex between a married couple, and that's how I segued into the Marx Brothers, it really had to do with Groucho and his relationship with Margaret Dumont.
Oh, sure.
In every episode of them that she was in every movie. And he just became such a hero of mine. He could do no wrong. And then when they did a Broadway musical, and I found out that he's from New York and lived on East 95th Street and grew up on the streets, that made it even better. And then when I came out to California, I guess in those days you would have called me a stalker.
Yeah.
Because I found out his address where he lived. And I drove my car and I parked the car across the street, and I would wait to see him drive Linda to school. And I could see him get into the car, drive down the driveway onto the street, drive right by me, and I knew he was behind the wheel. And I sat there trembling as he drove by. That's how nutty I was for Groucho.
But there was nobody like him. His ability to dismantle authority was fantastic. Wow. It was amazing. Nobody could do what Groucho did. Duck Soup. That's one of my, it didn't make my list, but if I had some, if I had honorable mentions, Duck Soup is there for sure. That's a wonderful, great, man.
Yeah. He and his brothers, I mean, they were also very talented. He gets a lot of the credit, but they were all extremely talented actors, musicians, performers. It's amazing that family, that they're all in the same family. They all come from the same background. I did finally get to meet him.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. So that was also very special for me.
And we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And recently, when he came to see a production of your El Grande de Coca-Cola
in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah. And you did everything you possibly could to get him in the house, and damn if he didn't show up. And that must have been wonderful, because you made that happen yourself.
Yeah, I guess. Although I had a lot of help from the press people and all that.
Yeah. But if you're not pushing and punching and doing everything you can to make this happen, it's not going to happen.
But the funniest part of that whole thing was that after he was in the auditorium, he had the beret on. I could see the smoke because I was looking from the balcony down. I could see the smoke billowing up from his cigar. Knowing that he was in the theater, the lights go down, the show comes on, and I sit there and I go, "Oh shit, what happens if he doesn't like the show? What happens if he says to me, he doesn't like the show? He doesn't think it's funny." So I start squirming in the chair, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, what do I do? I'll be destroyed if he says that to me." And so we finish the show, and I go downstairs, and he looks at me and he says, "So you're the producer of this?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Aha. And you think this is funny?" And I thought, "Oh my God, he's going to stick the knife right in my chest. I just ready." And I said, "Well, I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, it's in 5 languages, none of which are English, but totally understandable to an English-speaking audience." And he stopped me and he said, "I must tell you, except for my brothers, this has got to be one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Now, can I ask you to do me a favor?" And I said, "Yeah, a favor for you? Sure. What would you like?" He said, "How about taking me backstage so I can meet the girls?" This was when it was like 2 years before he died.
He wasn't dead yet.
Wasn't dead yet by a long shot. So
Groucho, he was not.
Groucho was a special character in my life.
I envy you getting to meet him.
Oh, it was great.
It is one of the great things about this particular gig that we've taken on, that we've gotten to meet some of our heroes.
Yeah.
I've talked about the fact that of all the actors that we got to meet with, actually the the actor who appeared on Tales from the Crypt, who I was most excited to meet, is not famous for being an actor. He's famous for being a writer, Buck Henry.
Yeah.
I getting to meet Buck Henry, the guy who wrote The Graduate, Catch-22, and Get Smart, and gosh, wow, that was incredibly exciting. Another writer who we never got a chance to work with, one of the greats. I wish we had, Paddy Chayefsky. And Paddy Chayefsky wrote one of the best movies ever, Network.
I see Howard Beale as a latter-day prophet.
Yesterday, I announced on this program that I was going to commit public suicide. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I just ran out of bullshit. I just ran out of it, you see.
One show like that could pull this whole network right out of the hole.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Well, you're not serious, are you?
Oh, I'm serious.
This is not a psychotic episode. This is a cleansing moment of clarity.
I am not putting Howard back on the air.
It's not your show anymore, Max. It's mine.
Starring the mad prophet of the airways, Howard Beale.
Why me?
Because you're on television, dummy.
He saw Fox News coming. It is the most remarkable thing when you watch Network. You think, God damn it, he saw Rupert Murdoch from 1,000 miles off.
Yeah.
And he nailed what was going to happen to us totally. It's there in that movie.
Yeah.
It's another great performance by William Holden. He's been in some of my Stalag 17. Yeah. I love him in Stalag 17.
Me too.
Because he was one of those guys. He was anti-hero. Yeah. You know, he was always the cynical guy who comes around. Hey, Sunset Boulevard. Sunset Boulevard. And in Network, oh, he's so good. Faye Dunaway. And I really like Faye Dunaway. God, when I think of all the movies that a lot of the movies I love, Faye Dunaway's in them. This Little Big Man.
How about Faye Dunaway in Chinatown?
Oh, of course, Chinatown. Well, yes, and Chinatown. It's Chinatown, Jake. Every time I drive through Chinatown, that pops into my it's Chinatown, Jake. You can't. You have to, and it's what a wonderful performance that she does, and that's a great movie too. Again, it's one of my honorable mentions for sure.
For me, at its core, it has to do with relationship.
Yeah,
it has to do with emotion, and it has to do. It's crime, but I mean those things that we all can relate to. I don't know anything about water. I don't know anything about politics, but I do know about relationships, and you know that's what made that movie so great for me.
And it's got a great relationship hinged scene where the truth about my daughter, my sister, my daughter, my sister, my daughter. Oh my God! Slap. What a perverse scene. One of the most perverse scenes ever imagined. Fantastic.
That was a great movie. I love Forrest Gump.
Sure.
But I'm biased because of our relationship with Bob. And I remember when we were doing Tales from the Crypt, Bob was cutting.
Yeah.
And we were chatting, and he said to me, "You got a few minutes?" And I said, "Yeah, what's up?" He said, "Come into the editing room with me." And I said, "Okay." And I said, "What's up?" And I thought he wanted to talk to me about something about our show. And he said, "I want to show you something. Tell me what you think." And he showed me the beginning scene of Gump, just a short portion of it, with him running with the things on his legs. And then he cut to, and they showed me a scene where Sally Fields is telling him she's dying. And then he stopped and he said, "So what do you think?" And I was like, whoa, I think I was just thrown off the bus. I mean, holy shit. I said, I want to see the rest of the movie. He said, "Do you really?" I said, "Yeah, I really want to see the rest of the movie." And then we chatted a little bit, and I said, "You know, Bob, if the rest of the movie is as good as what you just showed me, this is going to win the Academy Award." And he said, "No, really." I said, No, I'm not bullshitting you. I'm telling you, those two scenes that you just showed me really, really got to me. And if the rest of the movie is that good, it's just going to win an Academy Award.
Again, one of the luxuries we got to work with a guy who thought so completely outside the box.
Yeah. Right.
as we've described, one of the pleasures of working with Bob is that every project had at least one or two moments where Bob was going to pose you with something that he wanted to accomplish. There's a scene I want to see this, and he would tell you what it is he wanted to see. And Bob, that's impossible to get. That's utter. There's no way to get that. It's impossible. And he then turned to all of you and he'd go, "Okay, guys, how are we going to do that?" And damn if we didn't find a way.
Yeah. And we always did.
And Forrest Gump was filled with that. Look at Lieutenant Dan's legs.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the first movie where, for an extended period of a character's performance, they made his body, a big piece of his body, disappear using computer effect.
Yeah.
Bob was one of the first guys to play in that field.
Yep.
And to experiment it, and to, in the same way that D.W. Griffith invented the language of cinema, Bob has always been, reinventing language and creating new words and new ways of seeing things. When he did Polar Express, again, he was the first person to take that dare, and at that point, computers couldn't do faces the way they can do now, the way that artificial intelligence can make a face so fucking real, you don't even know if it's artificial. But Bob's always played in those places. Songs. Let's switch over and finish this with a little bit of music to soothe our way out.
The sucker punch for me was The Way We Were.
Sure.
From that movie. That was a great movie and a great song.
Marvin Hamlish.
Yes.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Marvin?
Oh yeah, I knew Marvin very well when he was making A Chorus Line with Ed Kleban. And with Michael Bennett. I hung out with them quite a lot, and I knew Marvin pretty well.
What was he like?
So very he didn't really know his own talent, I don't think. He just, he approached the material as the material. I think at some points he was very full of himself, but on other points he was very doubting. But I was closer with Ed Kleban than I was with Marvin, and I was closer with Michael, I think. But seeing that process evolve was just left a staggering impression on my brain as to how creatively you could be to get to where you wanted to be from where you were. And I saw a bunch of those workshops that they did for Joe. And eventually when they played it at the Public Theater and they moved it into Broadway, I mean, that whole experience was very special for me. But going back, that's a whole other topic and a whole other conversation. But the movie, The Way We Were, was really worked for the movie, and it really brought out the emotionality of those relationships so well. In the same token, I guess it's not a movie, but it is a movie. Is Hamilton.
Sure.
The score for Hamilton, which I've seen the play and I've seen the movie, or the Disney project of it. The music from that is just phenomenal, and the story of that is so phenomenal, and it's so relevant today, especially this year. And
even the story of how that project got made,
is
a remarkable wow.
Yeah.
So agree.
We should go on vacation someplace with a book that we want to do, and by the time we finish the vacation, say, okay, we'll do it.
There you go. Things to do this year.
Yeah.
I think my favorite song ever is Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. I came to that fairly late. Again, and when it finally hit my radar, and I don't think anyone's ever captured how hard love can be like that song captures it. The absolute ache on a biblical level.
Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof. Beauty
Well, it's one of those songs that just grabs you. I mean, it just really, whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking about, it stops you in your tracks and demands that you listen to it. And there are not many songs like that. But it just goes, almost in winding this up a little bit. It almost goes to what we've been talking about through all of these specific examples. It always comes back to that emotion. It always comes back to the feeling.
Sure. Yeah.
Music, movies, television, it always comes back to making us feel.
Although my last song doesn't actually make you feel anything, it makes you laugh.
Which is?
And it makes you laugh at something that actually comes right back to Are You Afraid? The show that we're doing, because it's a show about cannibalism. And one of my very favorite songs is A Little Priest from Sweeney Todd.
These are desperate times, Mrs. Huffing. Desperate measures are called for.
Here we are, hot out of the oven.
What is that?
It's priest, have a little priest.
Is it really good?
So it's too good, at least. Then again, they don't.
I love that song.
I was going to ask you if you were, before you said the name of the song, I was going to say, oh, the theme from the Pink Panther?
It's all the different people you could eat and what they would taste like. I mean, it's just it's Sondheim, and the wordplay is exquisite.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No.
Can't argue with that one. Can't argue with that.
As we take our show, Are You Afraid, out into the marketplace, it is one of the descriptors that we use it's a show about flesh-eating ghouls. What we say about it is that it's Walking Dead meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Sweeney Todd without the music.
Flesh-eating ghouls. For a long time, we humans have been deeply afraid of vampires and zombies.
Stand for paramedics.
Fair enough, vampires and zombies are scary. But neither vampires nor zombies
Are real.
Flesh-eating ghouls, on the other hand, are real. They've been living in our shadow for thousands of years, hunting us, feasting on us, treating us
Like food.
But some ghouls are tired of living in the shadow of their food. Those ghouls have decided it's time to leave the shadow
And put us in our place where we belong.
On the menu.
It's an eat or be eaten world.
flavored by fear, filled with the monster we
Should have been afraid of all along.
Flesh-eating ghoul.
Are you afraid?
Better be.
Coming soon.
Are You Afraid is about, really, it's about cannibalism. It's about eating people, and I don't know, to me, there's nothing funnier than cannibalism. I think one of our best episodes of Tales from the Crypt is the one that we wrote, that you directed, What's Cooking, which is about cannibalism. I think of the line we wrote, it's a dog-eat-dog world, and we're all just different flavors of Alpo.
You think that show was about cannibalism? And funny, I thought it was about squid.
Squid cannibalism, call it what you will. Are there any other songs you love, Gil?
I'm sure there are many, but those are the ones that come to mind.
Cool. Then we've come, we've seen, we've conquered.
Let's hope we conquered. I think our audience, if they hit the like button, will know we conquered.
Like I said at almost the start, I had no idea what you would have named it. I'm shocked by probably every one of those movies. Not shocked, but delightfully surprised.
See, I knew about you and Kubrick. I knew one of those were going to come up. I wasn't going to say, I wouldn't have said Barry Lyndon, but when you said Barry Lyndon, I got it. I totally said, oh yeah, right, of course.
It's just great filmmaking.
Do yourself a favor, and everyone out there, go see Marty Scorsese's movie Flower Moon.
Killer
of the Flower Moon. Go see
Killer
it.
of the Flower Moon. Yeah, that's on my list. I have not seen that yet.
I saw Past Lives, which is really quite good. A Korean movie.
Mm-hmm.
One of the better movies that I've seen.
That's our next conversation. We'll
movies we don't like.
Movies that disappoint us. Oh, we can
and
go
songs
on and on.
And songs that got us nauseous.
There you go. That's our next list. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
The How Not to Make a Movie podcast is executive produced by me, Alan Katz, by Gil Adler, and by Jason Stein. Our artwork was done by the amazing Jody Webster, and Jason Jody, along with Mando, are all the hosts of the fun and informative Dads from the Crypt podcast. Follow them for what my old pal the Crypt Keeper would have called terrible Crypt content.